Monday, August 4th, here on the Just Baseball Show. You got the three of us. That's Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton, and I am Peter Appel. And on today's episode, trade deadline winners and losers, plus some trade deadline awards that I think are really funny. Well, it's because I made them up. And it's all brought to us by the sportsbook born in Vegas. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether that be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JUSTBASEBALL. Why? First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first wager loses. But remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. Unfortunately, no weekend roundup because we got to break down the fallout from the trade deadline. But I want to start with the hottest team in baseball. Hashtag FishFam. Hashtag the Miami Marlins are coming off an incredible sweep of my New York Yankees. It was horrible for me, but it was incredible for the rest of baseball, including our guy, Jack McMullen. Jack, floor is yours. FishFam.
It was really fun this weekend. 101,000 people at that ballpark. It was 32, then 34, then 34. That place was absolutely alive. And it's so much fun to watch. Number one, like this team actually receive the national recognition that they deserve. And number two, watch the Yankees implode in a bunch of different ways and watch
The
base
first
running
game.
errors and watch a ball get under Caballero's glove. And then poetically during the mound visit right after that, Trent Grisham walk over and put his arm around Caballero. And it's like, hey, man, I know a thing or two about E9 on a ground ball that gets under and everybody scores. Listen, like this weekend was amazing. And I don't want to harp on the Yankee thing, although we can talk about it if you guys want. It was just a ridiculously cool weekend to be a fan of the Miami Marlins and be a part of this Marlins thing. Because if you've been paying attention to this team since the beginning of June, honestly, that Rockies series felt like crap. Like getting swept by the Colorado Rockies at home felt terrible. And since then, everything is flipped upside down.
Can I
And
quantify
since
it?
June,
Can
what?
I quantify that for you real quick, or do you
Yeah, of
have the
course.
numbers as well? No, I was just going to say that they were 24 and 40 on June 11th. So since June 11th, they're 31 and 15 and now back up to 500.
Yeah, so I was going to say since June 13th, that's kind of like the one date that everybody's IDing right now. Since June 13th, they are 30 and 14, 30 wins, tied for the most in baseball with the Milwaukee Brewers. And there's just something about the way these guys show up to the ballpark every single day. Friday was the ridiculous game. That was the best game I've ever had the privilege of calling, being in attendance for, watching live. It was absolutely insane. That 13 to 12 walk-off win for the Fish. If they're going to win a game like that, there's no game that they can't win at this point. That was my big takeaway there.
Aram, I have a question for you. You've been a Marlins fan your whole life, and you've seen plenty of GMs come and go, plenty of bad plans routinely repeat themselves.
I'd say
And
no
now,
plans.
or you could say no plans as well, but now there's clearly a plan here. And everybody thought, oh, the Marlins should just sell, but Peter Bendix didn't. Can you just speak to the difference in the plan with the Marlins from previous years as you've been a fan all your life?
I think sticking to it, every team has their internal model, right? And well, I would say every team, maybe not the Rockies. I don't know what the Pirates are doing, but and the Marlins in the past have been in that same conversation, right? But just knowing like, okay, there was a case to be made for trading a couple of these guys if you could get a franchise altering haul that sets you up for success for the next 5+ years. But if you're looking at it from an asset value perspective, they were not willing to sell low for the sake of trimming payroll and just continuing to add prospects, which I think is encouraging. It's something that I haven't seen in a little bit of time. And the times where they did spend money in the past, it was without any plan or really organization, or I would just say thought behind it, other than this is a player we can afford and he's probably the best that we can get for this amount of money. So let's do it, a la Avi Garcia, a la Wei Yin Chen. I could go on, Gene Segura. I could go on and on. So that part of it's really encouraging. But I think the thing that stands out the most to me is like for a team like this to succeed, yes, one, you need to create your own assets. And I think they're doing that in a lot of different ways from the development side of things. But two, you got to get the most out of every player. And I know Jack can speak to this too, and just seeing, what's happened this year in terms of the preparation and things like that. guys are getting up there and they're succeeding. And that's not something that people have seen with the Marlins in a while. Even the top-notch prospects would get up there and struggle. And now you're getting guys that are overlooked even, that are good players, but maybe not expected to be stars. I think everybody would have had Jacob Marcy as a fourth outfielder, and we'll see what happens long term. But a fourth outfielder type of prospect is probably not going to come up and just go crazy right away, but he is. Roberto Hernandez was striking out 35% of the time. He's come up and filled a really important role for them. I can talk about Griff and him making the leap and getting better from AAA. Kyle Stowers is obviously doing what he's doing. You have Augustine Ramirez instantly making an impact. Then you even have some guys that have been around a little bit that are seeing things click, like Otto Lopez. Like, I think there's a lot to be said about the process here, the way that they're approaching hitting, swing decisions, all of that stuff, arming their players with information, preparing them for success, and you're seeing the results. So that's the most tangible difference for me, is like there's cohesion from top to bottom of like hitting philosophy, their approach, and the players are buying in. And I mean, I've known, it's not just Griff. Like, I've known people in the organization for a while now, players on the player side. There hasn't been this type of buy-in in a long time. So I think that side of it is really exciting too, is that you're getting that buy-in because there's a plan. And when you see that as a player, it's a little bit easier than just being told, oh, this is the Yankee way or whatever the hell they've been told through the years. So that's the part that I'm really excited about. And I'll be honest, I still didn't really expect the results to be like this, but it's explainable through that. And I think that side of it's fun. And then the fact that they kept the squad together is even more encouraging now that you're seeing these results.
So my last question on the Marlins before we move on to trade deadline winners and losers.
No,
and
we're
then
spending
some
more time on the
awards.
Marlins than this.
I'm
We need
fine
like
with it.
5 more follow-ups.
This question might lead you into more. What has been the pleasant surprise for the Marlins? And it doesn't even have to be a certain player. It could be anything within the organization, the manager, the GM, their plan at the deadline, a player. It could be whatever pops into your mind first. Jack, I'll start with you. The pleasant surprise.
So I'll answer this, and then I want to circle back on a couple things that Aram said, because the answer for me is a player. It's Cabrera. It's Edward Cabrera. Like 6 innings of 2-hit, 1-run ball, and the only run was a leadoff homer from Trent Grisham. 4th pitch of the game was taken 412 feet to straightaway center. And I've heard plenty. I've heard from tons of people. The cabbie of old may just pack it in at that point and like, oh, that's the start of a bad day. But after that, 2 base runners in 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk. He punched out 7 after a leadoff homer on the 4th pitch of the freaking game. So for me, it's Cabrera. And there are a couple things that I want to circle back on with Aram, because he mentioned guys coming up and performing right away. I don't know if it's like this incubator that they have in Jacksonville or if it's just purely coincidental. And I do think that part of it is coincidence. Like, there needs to be a perfect storm for like all these guys to come up and do exactly what you were hoping they would or better. Typically, you see a subdued version of guys when they first come up to the major leagues. Like Baltimore's been dealing with that. The Cubs have been dealing with that. Everybody around the league deals with that. But Heriberto Hernandez, you mentioned, Augustine Ramirez is a top NL rookie, ranks in like everything. We knew he had a good bat. Did we think it was going to be this good already? I have no idea. Kyle Stowers was a forgotten man. He was worried he wasn't going to make the team in spring training, and he's got 25 homers on August 3rd. Jansen Junk was signed to a minor league contract. They call him up, and Junk just goes, 5 innings of 2-run ball or something on Friday, and he's been nails. Ronnie Enriquez was DFA'd. He looks like a freaking closer. Otto was DFA'd twice. He looks like a shortstop. So it's like they find all these guys, and it's almost bad news bears-ish, but there are data points that jump out about literally all of them that made them endearing, like risks to take, and they're all paying off. But for me, like looking at their deadline, it's cool that they didn't budge on their asking price for 2 guys in particular, Cabrera and Sandy. They feel like Sandy is turning a corner to be that frontline former Cy Young Award winner again. So if somebody wanted to call him a glorified salary dump, hey, we'll give you this guy and we'll take the money off your hands. No, like they value him way more than that. And at some point in this 15 start stretch for Cabrera, he turned into a frontline arm. It went from enticing project to, wow, that's the frontline stuff and it's happening, to, oh, damn, he might just be a frontline starter now. And they wanted a return that was frontline starter-esque. And if nobody was going to meet that they weren't going to trade him. It was really cool that they stood pat on their asking price for 2 guys. And now Marlins fans are reaping the rewards of that.
Love it.
And I'd say the last thing I'll add is just the pleasant surprise for me is creating the assets, because that's where the analytics side is huge. And if you're not going to spend with the big boys, which we've always talked about, the Marlins, it's just not it's not going to happen. They're not going to be top 5 in payroll. It's just never going to happen. You need to find another edge, right? That's where the Brewers and the Rays and all these other organizations do that. And I can't tell you the last time I've seen the Marlins play the waiver wire like this. And ID, it's not just Arani Enriquez, these other bullpen arms, man. Like, they are claiming and grabbing different bullpen arms that are way better than they've had in the past. In the past, they're signing Junichi Tazawa and Brad Ziegler, on their deathbed.
Blake
And giving
Bakker's
them
been gross since coming back from AAA. They optioned
been
him. He's
amazing.
come back, and it's nails.
But they've changed everything from pitching philosophy to hitting philosophy to front office philosophy, and it works. Like, we'll see if it turns into a World Series or a playoff appearance or whatever it may be. But it's a hell of a lot better and more watchable than it was in the past, and that's where the analytics are, I think, becoming an edge for the Marlins. And I think they've done a good job of balancing it, because Jack just had Griff's dad, Jeff Conine, on the broadcast today, and Jack asked him, what stands out about this team? And Jeff, old school guy, he'll tell you that himself, said they play the game the right way. They do all the little things. So you can be analytically driven, but you can still have a team of players that play the game the right way and do all the little things. So I think that's the fun part too, where they found that balance, and that's what it's all about.
Beautifully said, boys. And I'm glad my trash favorite team could aid in that happiness for the both of you.
Can I ask you, what were your emotions when Jazz got picked off on that double play on the pop up to second? Because his response post game fascinated me. I know exactly what he was trying to do, because he's seen Xavier Edwards do it, where like he just lets the ball bounce right in front of him, and then we'll get a fielder's choice to get the quicker guy off base. Nico Horner also did it like 2 weeks ago, I think, and it went viral. So Jazz was thinking, oh, X is going to do this to me. We have a previous relationship. But then what if he doesn't do it to you? So I just want to know your reaction to that.
Well, my actual reaction is not supposed to be on the airways. The things I
Okay.
was saying.
All right.
I was.
Give me the safe for work reaction.
I mean, I just turned the game off. It's just I can't. It's again. You guys are talking about how the Marlins do all the little things. The Yankees do zero little things.
Yeah.
Zero. Right? So it's like when they're hitting a bunch of home runs, it looks awesome, and the Yankees look like they can't be beat. But when the defense falls apart, when they make stupid base running mistakes like that, when the third base coach is trying to get Grisham in from second base and he gets thrown out by 30 feet. Like, it's like those things make me so mad. A loss is a loss. Teams are going to lose all the time. It doesn't matter, right? Even the best teams are going to lose 60 plus games. But it's not that. It's losing so stupidly, so dumb.
Well, and Jazz said he wouldn't do it any different.
Yeah. Credit to him, man. It's going to work at some point.
I
Yeah.
really want to move forward. Like, I'm already getting so pissed. Like, I did this whole weekend of just watching and getting so mad, and now it's getting brought back up. I just wanted to talk eloquently about how great the Marlins have been without talking about the Yankees.
Yeah, but how did you watch this weekend? Did you go with our audio feed change?
Of course, every time now. Like,
Good.
since I have figured it out, I have never changed it. All right, let's talk trade deadline winners and losers. So we all have 3, and we have not shared our answers with, the other 2 on this show. So we should have differing answers. And we all have a bronze medal, a silver medal, and a gold medal. And I also wanted to limit it to 3. I'm actually curious what you guys think, because it's like, I don't want to give out participation trophies. Like, I don't even think there are 5 winners of the deadline. Like, I think if some teams had a good deadline, doesn't mean they won the deadline. Does that make sense?
It does, but like I have a couple honorable mentions because I feel like I need to include everybody.
Yeah, screw that. I feel like I don't want to include anybody.
Okay.
I'm on the
Interesting.
opposite side. So how about this? We'll all do our bronze medal, but might as well throw it over to you for some of your honorable mentions first.
Yeah. So let's go winners entirely and then losers entirely. Does that sound
Okay,
good?
let's do it.
We'll go bronze all 3, and then silver all 3, and then gold all 3.
Perfect. Yeah, let's start with the winners.
Um, I did have co-silvers in the winner group too, so
Of
I'm
course
sorry.
he did.
I'm being so brutal. But the two honorable mentions that I had, I just wanted to shout out New York, the Mets, and Minnesota. I wanted to shout out Minnesota because like they did the sell job appropriately. I understand that they held on to Ryan, but if you're gonna tear it down, like tear it down. Get out of money like Correa. Yohan Duran was the most valuable asset that you probably had outside of Joe Ryan. You moved him. Griffin Jack's second most valuable asset you had. You moved him. Harrison Bader, a guy that made a lot of sense to move. You moved him. Like they did the sell job the right way. I don't believe in kind of half-assing the sell job. Why is Luis Roberts still a White Sox right now? I appreciate the Twins for actually going all the way in on the sell job. And then I did want to shout out the Mets from my honorable mention because they plugged the two things that they needed. They got Mullins, they got Helsley. Cool. Feel good about 8-9 Helsley and Diaz.
So I want to talk about the Mets a little bit more when we get to maybe my bronze medal. But Aram, real quick, were the Twins on? Did the Twins medal for you?
No, they did not medal for
Me,
me.
not, me either. And I want to know why you didn't put them on.
I mean, I appreciate. I get where Jack's coming from. Like, I appreciate them committing to a direction, and the reality is the same reason why the Marlins. I'm not the same reason why, but a big part of why the Marlins didn't trade their guys is that nobody was willing to give up what it requires to acquire those guys. And it's the same thing with Joe Ryan. Nobody was going to offer what was required to get Joe Ryan, so Joe Ryan didn't get moved. Same story for Mackenzie Gore. Like, teams were just weirdly frugal in that regard. You weren't getting two major pieces for the most part. So I wanted to give the Twins credit, but even some of their returns I didn't love. Like Griffin, I don't really understand even trading Griffin Jacks when you traded Duran. It's like this team is not that far off. They didn't have to deplete the whole bullpen, and then Taj Bradley for Griffin Jacks when like that one didn't make a ton of sense to me, and I don't know, that one was weird. And then Louis Varlin like trading like the Minnesota kid who has a ton of control and is having a great year, and yeah, it's not like a franchise altering return here for Varlin. I thought that was kind of weird. But I do appreciate them having a direction and making sure they actually did something. The Astros were my honorable mention team because I don't think they did enough to be in the conversation with like maybe the top three. But to get Carlos Correa back at a discount because a third of the money's being paid, that's just such a fun and great move because it's going to help you in the postseason. Bring a vet back. I think it's going to rejuvenate him. He already went yard today as we're recording this, and he's playing third now. And that left side of the infield could be as good defensively as any. And I think the offense is going to tick back up. But then again, you get one of the best postseason performers of all time. Jesus Sanchez, like I think he was excess for the Marlins, but does fit a nice spot for the Astros there. And it's not like they gave up a ton. So I thought that was a nice little get for them too. But I think that the Correa move was just the most fun and entertaining for me. So that one gets an honorable mention. But yeah, the Twins just don't quite get there for me.
The Twins don't get there for me just on the basis of if you have a fire sale, no matter how good you do that, you can't be a winner for me because you had a fire sale. Like I'm just thinking about all the Twins fans who, they're not completely out of it, but now what is their direction long term? I guess now we're just in a huge rebuild. Like, all the jerseys that are now gone off, out of the closets, the Yohan Duran, the Griffin Jacks, the Carlos Correa jerseys. I mean, to be a Twins fan after the deadline, I don't think they care about the returns. Like, I'm sure they care, but they're probably just feeling so depressed after something like that. So while I agree with you, Jack, it was the right direction.
Yeah.
And I agree with Arm, there were some questionable returns, but I think even Arm would say that overall they did do pretty well. But even if they crushed it, I just can never put a complete fire sale on the winners when I'm trying to medal.
Valid counterpoint. I will say, these Twins fans may be pissed that they can't wear their Duran jersey anymore. They can because it immediately turned vintage, and that's funny. But that Tait jersey and that Abel jersey and that Rojas jersey later could be awesome. So these are the ebbs and flows of baseball when you're not a Yankee fan. So sorry, Peter, you've never experienced this.
Thankfully. Well, we should though.
Yeah,
we should
and they did
blow
need
it
a
up.
direction, and I do think it sets them up. And their pitching situation's really fun now. They've got some position players. Luke Keeshaw's coming back. Walker Jenkins is healthy for now, and he's homered a few times over the last week.
Isn't
That's still a key
Rodriguez
guy
healthy
for you.
too?
So And I love the like Outman flyer. Like they did some other interesting stuff. So I think it was overall positive. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not giving them credit for disappointing and then tearing it down to the studs.
So, Arm, I'll throw it over to you first. Your bronze medal, your winner, coming in third.
So I was really torn with the bronze and silver, and I think you can interchange them pretty easily. But I'm gonna go with the Phillies on the bronze. Because and I'll elaborate more when we get to silver because I think you can make a similar case, and they're a little bit more comparable of deadlines than people may think. But I mean, the Phillies did a great job. Duran is exactly what they needed, and that was one of the trades I was kind of pounding the table for here a little bit because I just thought it fits so well. They do give up some good pieces, obviously, but Mick Abel was excess. We've been mock trading him plenty, and Eduardo Tait, like he is the future, potentially the future of your catching position, but he's also still multiple years off. So you figure you can figure that out later on. You're trying to win a World Series, and you're getting multiple years of Durant, and then all the just the little moves that they were able to make to kind of just fill everything else in too. I think was enough. I love the Bader fit, and now you put him in center field to platoon with Marsh potentially. Like that works really well. And the way Bader's playing, maybe he ends up just cutting into to majority reps. But I loved that fit as well. But I think in a nutshell, Duran alone may have been as good of a acquisition as just about any team, given the impact, the need, and the fit, with just also the marketability and how electric it is. So that was enough to give them the bronze. But then also getting Bader, yeah, that definitely helps their case.
I agree. I like the Phillies deadline. I do wish that they added some more bullpen depth, right? You got Kirkering, you got Strom, you got Banks, but with all these contenders in the National League loading up on bullpen arms, I just still feel like even though they got Duran and it is a good bullpen, I feel like they left a little bit of meat on the bone. I would have also liked maybe slightly more of an impact bat beyond Bader. But like you said, Arm, they answered the biggest questions that the Phillies had, right? They needed a right-handed bat, they needed a center fielder, and they needed a closer. So they answered those questions. They had a good deadline, but they didn't medal for me. Who got the bronze for you, Jack?
So I lied. I didn't have Cove Silver. I had Cove Bronze. And my Cove Bronze, one of them is Philly. They had two
Okay.
holes. They plugged those two holes. The other one is San Diego. And I understand that San Diego is going to show up a lot higher for probably you, Peter. And I'm thinking you too, Aram. But like San Diego, okay, they filled literally every hole that they had on their like big league roster. But there goes the farm again. Like time to start from scratch. And that part eats at me a little bit more than it probably should because Preller is so good at restocking the farm. But we're 2 years away from the next huge deadline from Preller. And you know what? They're probably going to have five guys spawn over the next 365 days, and he's going to trade those guys for another rental outfielder. So it's going to be okay. But like the way that he just annihilated, vaporized, what eliminated the farm system entirely really like rubs me the wrong way to the point where I got to drop him from gold based on big league moves to bronze.
So I'll talk more about the Padres later on in this winners category. I'm sure Arm will too. So I'll move on to my bronze. I went with the Mets because I feel like they had a very similar deadline to the Phillies, but I thought they gave up less prospect capital and answered more questions, right? You needed a left-handed reliever desperately. And Gregory Soto is a pretty damn good one. A lot of swing and miss, electric against left-handed bats. So in the playoffs, when you're facing Harper and you're facing Ohtani and you're facing all these Kyle Tucker, these great left-handed bats, you need a guy like Gregory Soto, and they got it. They also needed another high-leverage bullpen arm, and they got two with Ryan Helsley and Tyler Rogers. And I thought the returns were fair, if not light, for a guy like Ryan Helsley. And then they also needed a center fielder. And me personally, I think I'd rather have Cedric Mullins than Harrison Bader, and they didn't give up much for him. Now, that could be argued, right? Whether you'd rather have Bader or whether you'd rather have Mullins. But I think, in my opinion, Mullins just has a little bit more upside. So that's why I would say if I did have an honorable mention, I agree with you guys, it would be the Phillies because they answered those questions. I just thought the Mets answered a few more questions. And I liked the way that they handled the deadline with these returns.
I'm glad you mentioned the Mets because like they should definitely at least be an honorable mention. I think for me, just kind of not quite getting. I think they did everything. They can still win the World Series, right? Like they did what they needed to do, especially with the way Edwin Diaz has been throwing now. You have a really strong bullpen running through. And I talked about it like everyone, I think publicly, you look at public prospect lists, it looks like they gave up a ton for Tyler Rogers. Like they didn't. And they needed to create the 40-man space because they knew they were going to go get Helsley. And they knew that the Cardinals were not going to want any prospects that are close to taking space on the 40-man because these are Heim Bloom trades. So I think from that perspective, it was definitely a savvy deadline without really trading from any of their tier 1 or tier 2 prospects for the most part. But it was 2 rental relievers and a rental outfielder for the most part. So like that part for me was and actually 3 rental relievers, right? Because Soto's also a rental.
Yep, all rental.
So and I get it. They did that for a reason, so they didn't have to part with even their tier 2 guys. But you know, it is a lot of just sending it in for this year, and I think they're just confident in their ability to fill things for next year. So I appreciate that, and that gets them an honorable mention. But I think just not quite the bronze for me.
Over to you, silver.
So I was torn, and ultimately I do go with the Padres for the silver. And you know, I think you could make a gold case for them, but it's kind of the flip of your argument about like tearing it down. I'm not going to give them credit for it. You know, when you're full-fledged sellers, other teams could have done this if they were as reckless and I feel like reckless may be the harsh word, but if they were as fearless, but fearless often borders on reckless. And I think that's where it just keeps him from the gold. As a prospect guy, I still support the like kind of fuck them prospects idea to a degree. Like, just how often is it you're gonna blow up? We're talking about the Orioles. We ripped them for the same thing the other way. We can't play both sides. But there's a good middle ground here. That said, if Preller just did the Mason Miller move, I don't know if I'm pointing towards him being this team being a silver. But to then, if you're gonna do it, go all the way and do it. But it wasn't just the fact that they added to the lineup. There were some small savvy moves. I like the Will Wagner pickup to give you some depth. I like the Nestor Cortez pickup to give you some depth. I liked the bundling of a rental O'Hearn. Say, okay, the asking price was too high for O'Hearn. It wasn't comfortable for a lot of teams. Well, I'll meet your crazy asking price then. I'll tack on a little bit more, and I'll get Laureano, who's playing as well as really anybody that you could have probably acquired for the outfield. And if I'm not mistaken, another year of control that is very affordable next year. So that's another reason why I really like that move. Yeah, they went in bulk and sent out a bunch of prospects, but you could argue that none of those prospects, while I do think it was a good package for the Orioles, given it's a rental and, you know, a year and a half of another player, none of those guys are above 45 future value. So I think that really put them over the top to the silver for me. Yes, they gave up a ton. Yes, they pretty much mortgage the future as they always do, but then they find a way to replenish. But once you made that Mason Miller trade, once you traded Leo DeVries, I think that needed to happen. I would have been uncomfortable if it was all rentals. That's why I liked getting Laureano into the fold as well. And then I liked the depth moves too. Like I think there was savviness mixed into the recklessness, which I appreciated from AJ Preller.
Jack, silver?
The Yankees. I know it didn't look awesome. I know it did not look awesome this weekend, but the Yankees. Listen, the Yankees had 2 glaring deficiencies on the roster, and that was the 4-man bench, and that was help with Devin Williams and Luke Weaver. And they created, on paper, a super pen. And what we learned on Friday night is that on paper doesn't always result in on-field success. But Jake Bird looked a hell of a lot better his second time out. You have to assume Bednar and Doval are going to be better when they come out again.
Do we?
You have to assume that Bednar and Doval look better when they come out again. So you add Bird, Bednar, and Doval to that bullpen. And for me, they got a hell of a lot better on their bench. Jose Caballero, I know, huge mistake on Friday, but that guy is tied with O'Neal Cruz for the major league lead in stolen bases. They needed Bags bad. And he is a versatile defender that swipes a bunch of bases. Every single team in baseball would love to have someone like Jose Caballero on their bench. Austin Slater, that's another guy that can handle the short side of a platoon and come in and pinch hit situations. For me, they did enough. Help McMahon. They needed a warm body that was a good defender at third base. He made two incredible plays this weekend. I know he went 0 for 4 with 4 punchies on Sunday, but there's caveats to all these guys. On paper, I like what they did over the course of 2 months.
No, absolutely, you're right. I got to be honest, though. After watching this Marlins series and watching them fall apart, we're going to talk about them in the awards section of this episode. I'm going to talk about that.
Okay.
So I'll save that for then. But I will say, before all of this, before that Marlins series happened, I did tweet out I was really happy with what Brian Cashman did because, you talk about how with the Mets, how you wish they bought with some control. And that's why you like the Phillies a little bit more because Duran comes with that control. The Yankees bought with control with pretty much everybody. All three of those relievers, multiple years of control. Ryan McMahon comes with control, right? So Brian Cashman wasn't just buying for this year. Bednar, Bird, and Duvall are going to be members of this bullpen for a long time. And that's huge because all three of them are really solid arms. I mean, you could argue, how good of an arm is Jake Bird, but at the end of the day, Jake Bird is your sixth inning guy, maybe your fifth inning guy, right? With this bullpen. So I agree. I thought the Yankees did a great job, but I did not include them because I'm protesting how they played in that Marlins series.
I do think that's another honorable mention team too. Like just because they didn't give up much either for that control. The David Bednar return was so light. I mean, we talked about it on the live stream. I thought that was a crazy light return. I know some people out there really like Flores, and it looks like he could potentially stick behind the dish a little bit more than I anticipated early in the year. But that was pretty much the main piece there, right? And then it was a catcher with a 580 OPS, and then I think Brian Sanchez, right, who I think is a fun third piece, but. To get Bednar for that with the way he's throwing is I think huge, and then even Doval, like the upside of those two guys is great, and they didn't trade from any of their key prospects, which is nuts. So, I did kind of want to see a bigger splash from the Yankees, but the reality is they make their splashes in free agency. Like you look at big trades, it's been a while since they've done that. Like I know they added Juan Soto, but in terms of like giving up like a major haul, especially at the deadline time, that's not really how they operate as much anymore.
Do you have to go back to Chapman for that? You might have to go back to Chapman.
Like Jazz was like probably one of the more significant hauls they've given up in some time. So
actually that was reversed. That was a buy for the Cubs. I had it twisted in my mind. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Jazz.
It's nuts. So I like what they did, but I don't know. I can't get too excited about Ryan McMahon, and you're taking on all the money and then bullpen moves.
That's more than fair. Let's get to my silver medal. My guess is this team might be gold for you guys. Seattle Mariners finishing second for me. You add Gino Suarez, you add Josh Naylor, you add Caleb Ferguson. I thought all three moves were phenomenal, right? I think if I'm a Diamondbacks fan, I'm a little disappointed with the return. Even if you're a big Tyler Locklear fan, right, Jack, you said he was the first player dealt with at least 35 home runs by the deadline, right? Yeah. You're getting one of the best rental bats in recent history, and the numbers would say he might be the best rental bat. And you got Tyler Locklear, who again could be good, but he wasn't one of the big time prospects for the Mariners. And then the Josh Naylor trade. I thought it was solid, but it's not like they overpaid for him, and you bring in a very solid bat. And now you pair both of those two guys on the corners, and the Mariners lineup right now looks phenomenal. And now the Mariners lineup wasn't really the problem. It was actually the strength of the Mariners this year, which is the complete opposite of prior years, but might as well build on that strength, right? Take a little pressure off Julio Rodriguez, right? But you still have Randy, you still have Cal, obviously. And now you add Naylor and Gino Suarez. I thought they did such a good job. I'm sure you guys will talk more when we get to the gold part. And then adding Caleb Ferguson. It's not the sexiest reliever deal in the world, but he didn't give up much, and he needed a lefty reliever, and he's been really, really solid this year. Now, do I wish they got a big-time high-leverage reliever? Would I have minded another starter in the fold? Sure, but I still thought they had a great deadline.
Yeah, Marine layer guys wanted Griffin Jacks bad.
Yeah.
That would have been cool, but Ferguson doesn't do anything for me. Aram, I'll let you start with like the gold pitch for Seattle, but they were my gold.
They were your gold?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have liked to probably see them go get another reliever arm. I just and I know I'm a little bit of a hypocrite saying that like I kind of wish the Mets bought with a little bit more control, and then I'm gonna give a gold to the Mariners who didn't
For two
really
rentals.
buy with control, but they got the two best bats on the market, and I think that says a lot. And I talk about like draft models, and this is like a weird comparison, but I think the Athletics have done a really good job with drafting because I think their draft model finds value on both ends of the spectrum of what teams are sometimes afraid of. They take the contact oriented guy that teams are really afraid won't have enough impact in a Jacob Wilson, and it works out. They take a Nick Kurtz, who teams are afraid of is too much of a sellout for power, maybe too much whiff, and it works out. And I think with every team being so model driven now, with the way that they approach deadlines and the way they approach things, sometimes bucking the trend can work in your favor. And with the way models are set up now, from what I understand, rental bats are just rejected. Like rental bats, no team will want to give up good pieces for rental bats anymore. Like until there's a recalibration, if that ever happens, on the way that these teams implement their models, you're not going to see significant returns for rental bats. And they still didn't even give up significant returns, but they gave up a little bit more than what other teams were willing to give up. And I think the same thing with draft models, where a guy like Jacob Wilson becomes underrated because the draft models don't love the EVs or other components. I think this was an opportunity to get bats that you normally you're not able to get these two guys without trading from one of your 8 top prospects. And you did that, even though they're rentals, to get the two best bats on the market, to get arguably the best bat to hit the deadline market, as Peter said, as long as we can remember. Even though they're rentals, that's crazy. So I think that was really what pushed them over, is they were willing to do something that other teams weren't willing to do. And I appreciate a team kind of trying to find an edge by actually defying the model a little bit. And when you get a Geno Suarez and you get a Josh Naylor, like that's enough to push them over the top. And yeah, I would have liked to see them maybe do something else bullpen wise, but Munoz, Brash, and then what Bizardo's doing, Spire, like they didn't really need that much more than Caleb Ferguson, who I think you'll get some of the underlying could point towards some better days ahead. I do want to give one shout on the Locklear thing. So, and I'm going to do a video on this soon. He changed his swing. He had really loud, like Gary Sheffield type of hand movement before his swing. And then I believe it was on June 6th, he changed that. He brought his hands down, he stopped waggling them like crazy, and he quieted his load significantly. From that point onward in AAA, he hit in 42 games 366, 448, 720 with 15 home runs. So this guy figured something out. But that's a guy you're happy to move when you're getting a Geno Suarez. So they sold high on a guy who they actually made an adjustment with and helped turn into a good asset. And again, they got the two best rental bats on the market and one of the best rental bats that has been available at the deadline ever.
Go ahead, Jack. Anything else on the Mariners?
No, I mean, perfectly said. They're my gold. I think subconsciously they're also my gold because my expectations were very low. Like
Yeah,
me
the
too.
Mariners year in and year out make me think, oh, I mean, they're just never going to prioritize going to get offensive pieces to complement this staff, especially with Bryce Miller already ramping up, trying to return. So that's 5 deep at that point. That's max output that we get from them. And you're probably looking at a postseason rotation of Wu, Gilbert, Kirby, Castillo, and you've got that bullpen. The fact that they actually prioritized offense, like they exceeded my expectations by a lot. So credit to them for setting the bar pretty damn low and also flying past it.
So my gold, my winner of the deadline, as I'm sure you probably already know by now, is the San Diego Padres. And I thought they won the deadline by far. By far. And Arm, I want to actually build off of your point about how defying the models, right? You can almost find an edge in that way. I almost feel like all 29 other teams are so reluctant to part with their better prospects. And I'm sure all of these models are saying that these prospects are more valuable than some of these big league pieces are. And I think AJ Preller, that's how he makes the market his, where he is willing to part with a DeVries in a potential Mason Miller trade. Now, you can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, like, DeVries is an 18-year-old in high A. Arm, I know you love him as a prospect, but there have been plenty of hyped 18-year-olds in high A who have never made it. Now, even if you assume that a guy like DeVries is going to make it, sure. But at the end of the day, you can't firmly say that. What we can firmly say is Mason Miller is a top 5 at worst closer in the game. And if they can convert him into a starter, I almost think about it like this. Is it more likely they convert Mason Miller into a starter and he becomes elite in our game, or DeVries ends up being the prospect we all think he can be? I don't know. I think both are risky, right? But everybody is acting like DeVries is already an all-star, that he already made his money, that he's already become this incredible player. But it's less about the Mason Miller deal, and it's more about answering every single hole that you possibly can. The Padres were bottom 5 in the league in terms of WRC plus from their left field situation. What do? Ramon Laureano, who's got an OPS near 900, WRC plus over 140. Their DH position, bottom 5 in the league. What do? Add Ryan O'Hearn, who was an all-star, right? So you add Mason Miller. You also get JP Sears in that deal, who is not a bad pitcher by any stretch of the imagination, who comes with 3.5 years of control. You add to your catching situation. You get Nestor Cortez Jr. You get Will Wagner as well. So for me, when Jack, you were saying about like, I was actually saying that you can't win if you do a full fire sale. I feel like when we're grading trade deadlines right now, I actually don't pay as much attention to the prospect returns because we could say they're heavy, but at the end of the day, we don't know what they're going to become. So for me, Padres win the deadline in a landslide.
So your framing is just totally different than mine. Like if you're saying you can't reward a fire sale, like you are looking at this from the sake of making your big league roster better. And if that is your criteria, then absolutely the Padres won the deadline.
And again,
but that's
we all
not
have
taking
different
into account
criteria.
the rest of the organization.
That's my criteria, is making your organization better. And at the end of the day,
no, it's not. No, it's making your 26-man roster better. That's your criteria.
I think
Mine
the
was making
Padres
the organization better.
I think the Padres went from a fringe playoff team to a potential World Series winner. And that's why I grabbed them at 20-1 to win the World Series on BetMGM.
I think they were a playoff team before, because they were what, 5 up or 4? What were they up at the deadline? Whatever it is now, it's even bigger. So I hear it, and that's why they were silver for me. My thing is, a lot of teams can do what Preller did, and just,
but they didn't
deplete the farm, right? Just absolutely rip it to shreds. And I support it to a point, and then I think once it goes to a certain point, that's where he relegates. Still winner for me, clear winner, but just behind, because I'm looking at it from this year. Like the Mariners, I think, put themselves in a just as strong of a position without parting with one of their top 8 or 9 guys. Yeah. You could argue maybe top 10 guys.
And the Mets got really freaking good without moving Benj, Tong, McClain, Sproat, like all these guys.
I don't think they've parted with one of their top 12 guys.
Yeah, dude.
But to Peter's point, and like I was saying before with the Silver case, to get O'Hearn, to get Laureano with a $6.5 million option for next year, which you're picking up the second the season's over. Yeah. The one thing that did, and the more I sat on it, didn't make a ton of sense to me, the Freddie Fermin trade.
Agreed. I ripped that as soon as it happened. I thought they gave up 2 pitchers with control for Freddie Fermin. That was the one deal that I was like, what are you doing, dude?
I didn't get that one. Fermin's not doing anything better really than what they currently had.
That's what I was saying too. Agreed.
But their farm system situation now, it wasn't just the DeVries thing. So I love Braden Nett. I think he could be a legitimate starter for them as soon as next year. He's disgusting. And then, I mean, they moved so many guys
Could the San Antonio Missions field a roster on Friday? Like that's my big thing.
But here's the thing. Don't we do this every year with the Padres and then they keep doing it over and over again and they somehow find a system again? This is just the way AJ Preller operates to take his team from what I thought was a fringe playoff team to a World Series contender. So if he could do this every year and next year, Arm, when you're doing a prospect report and you're like, Preller did it again. We got a guy in high A who's taking the world by storm. One of their guys who went from high A to double A is now kicking the shit out of baseballs. Like, aren't we just going to do this again next year? And then he's going to do it again the next year. And then this is just how it works.
Maybe, but I think this was like the most volume we've ever seen. Where like there isn't even like the tier 2 guys to then make that leap next year. Their draft guys, they traded their second round pick in Boston Bateman, and their first round pick, they tried to trade from what I understand, but nobody wanted him because his shoulder was bad to start the year and he was throwing 89 miles an hour. And so I like
but that guy next year is going to throw 94. Next year, that guy's going to throw a 94. You're going to be like,
Cash
wait, he's kind of a great prospect.
But the craziest part is like he wanted to move Cash Mayfield. He tried. But like Cash has been throwing well over the last couple outings, and I think that's the guy that could make the leap for them. He's gonna draft well, but it's the sheer volume that's kind of crazy to me. That it does kind of blow my mind. But they did make a nice little snipe here, and I do want to give. And this is just Preller scouting. The guy that might do it, Jorge Quintana, the prospect they got for Nestor Cortez from the Brewers, complex kid. That's gonna be their guy that just like, oh my gosh, they got him for Nestor Cortez. So I can support the gold just because of what they did. And you don't get an opportunity to acquire a Mason Miller type very often. And the rest of the moves that they made and the depth that they made. So like I could even be talked into a gold. But when I went through the list of like 20 prospects that went the other way, it just pushed me to silver, given the long-term organization health that the Mariners still have now, where they bought to go all in for this season, but they are still farm system wise, that wouldn't have even dropped them down a rank, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like if they were 2, they're still 2. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Screw them prospects. Give me all the players like Preller thinks. All right, before we get to the losers, we're going to shit on some teams in a second, but Arm, let's talk about our friends at Lids. You guys just had a great event, and it's so cool that we have this partnership now because, what I love hats. Like I have probably 30 in my closet. I have a couple right here, and I've just been collecting hats for a while. And I would always, there was a Lids in our mall in Santa Barbara, and even in LA, we'd play in baseball tournaments. And whenever we were at the mall, Lids was the first store because they have the best collection. And now they have cards too.
Yes. And that's the big push now. Like they got cards. And if you go to whatever local Lids you got and you just buy they got Topps Chrome, right? And then they're going to have products every single time. They have hobby boxes, which usually you got to go to a card shop to find, and it's going to be pretty expensive there. And you're not able to get those hobby boxes at other retail stores. But even if you just buy a blaster box and you let them know, you just say the code JB Lids to them, you get a free Access Pass membership for a year. So that gets you 20% off headwear. So for a hat, 20% off. That gets you 10% off apparel, 10% off novelty, and then access to product giveaways, exclusive experience, and early access to product drops. I know they just did something with 3 like lucky Access Pass members. They got to meet Ronald Acuna Jr., who came to Lids during All-Star Weekend. So all you have to do is buy a blaster box. And then with that purchase, if you just say JB Lids, you get all of those things for a year. So it's a no-brainer there. And I actually went into my Lids the other day to finish embroidering the JB logo.
Yeah.
That we're going to give away that hat. But finish embroidering the JB logo. Stay tuned on our socials. We're going to put out a video and give away. It's a throwback Marlins hat with the Just Baseball logo on it. But I just went in there to get the hat embroidered. And then, of course, I had to go buy another blaster box. And I hit a Ellie De La Cruz card out of there that was short print. I did sell it here at the National because I wanted to buy some other stuff, but I sold it for like a couple $100. So that was fun. But yeah, just go to your closest Lids. Go tell them JB Lids when you buy a blaster box, and you get that free access premium membership for a year.
For me,
Perfect.
it's always a good gauge to see who runs the league when you walk into your local lids and you see their jersey hanging up. Like that was my big thing. I would just gauge like, oh, it's Pat Surtain's league now.
I like that.
which is great. Very funny thing happened actually when I was at the Lids too. Woman comes in and it was obviously just before this Yankee series, and she goes, "Do you have an Anthony Volpe jersey?" And the
Yes.
Lids guys go, "No, we have Judge, but we don't have Volpe here because it's a Florida, it's a South Florida Lids. They're not going to carry like the third most popular player." But then the woman walks out, and the guys are like, "We've never been asked for an Anthony Volpe jersey before, especially now."
That's
And I
depressing.
was like, "Oh, yeah, that was kind of poetic." But they do have a lot of jerseys, I will say. But Florida Lids is probably not going to have the Volpe.
You're gonna get your Augustine
You
Ramirez
can't even
though.
sell Volpe
Sure.
jerseys in New York right now.
I have to buy
Could.
all of them just to keep them
Models.
just to keep them going. All right, now it's time for our first break before we get to trade deadline losers. Okay, let's talk about the teams that stunk it up, disappointed their fans, and had them all crashing out. Your bronze medal, or do you guys have honorable mentions that you want to talk about before the bronze medal? Jack, we'll start with you.
My only honorable mention is the White Sox because Luis Robert's still on the roster.
Yeah.
I don't really understand.
Yeah. No, I get that, but at the same
Nobody
time,
wants him.
I wonder what these teams were trying to give them, right? We saw that report between the Phillies where it seemed like Chris Getz was very willing to make a deal, and Dave Dombrowski basically said, "We don't even want him." So if no teams even want him, what is he supposed to do?
Like dump the money. I
I
have
know.
no idea. Hope that he plays well for the next 2 months, but they've been doing that for the last year and a half. Like
Yeah.
for me, it's been Luis Robert for the last year and a half. Like we've been on Lou Bob watch. When are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? And the fact that it didn't even come now, it feels like his value is truly in the gutter.
Yeah. So
My honorable mention is the Reds. Because they did shit, I guess. Like, so they're not my bronze, but I, Brian Hayes. So this is what I was trying to understand. You go get Brian Hayes, you're perpetually cheap franchise. So even though it's an affordable deal, like Ryan McMahon for the Yankees makes sense that you're taking on that money because it's like that's a cheap deal. It's not going to impact our spending whatsoever. Every dollar counts for Bob Castellini's team.
Yeah.
So that's still a chunk of change that could be allocated elsewhere. And instead, you're allocating it towards a third base project. And you could say, well, but he's an elite defender. Great. But now you're punting Noelvi Marte to the corner outfield. So what any defensive value you're getting from not any, but like a portion of the defensive value you're getting from Brian Hayes at third is now being just given up in corner outfield. So I thought that was kind of weird. Zach Littell, did you go into the deadline saying they need a Zach Littell type?
Yeah.
everyone
I
could
don't
use a Zach Littell type.
Yeah.
Get outs.
I actually mocked that one a couple months ago.
Yeah, Jack and I were completely aligned. You're on an island there.
I had
Yeah.
Sirwinowski
So
going to the Dodgers
for me
in that too,
personally,
but it was
I didn't see the fit. I would have, especially with their starting pitching situation. Like again, you can always use innings. I would have rather seen them address the bullpen. Like, okay, great, you have Zach Littell. You still have a back end of the bullpen that I don't trust. As good as Pagan has been, as good as Tony Jack, is it Santillan?
yeah,
Santillan?
Tony
Santillan.
Santillan.
As good as those guys have been, if this team sneaks into the wild card, do you trust those guys?
I don't think you really have your finger on the pulse of Reds Nation like I do Reds country. You put Littell in the bullpen, he's ticking up to 99 to 101.
Agreed. All they want is just to replicate Nick Martinez 25 different times.
Yes. And
The
you also got a fly ball ish pitcher with a home run to fly ball rate of 15%,
nice,
and you put him in Great American Ballpark.
not
He had
awesome.
a FIP of 4.89.
Better than
I
five.
just don't. It is below 5.
It is
The
below
only
five.
the only thing that saved them from the podium for me was Andujar. To be honest, like
I
if
know.
it
I
was
loved
just
that
Q-
pickup.
It was a great
and,
pickup. That
and the
saved,
fact that they did stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was But and Duhar was actually part of the reason why they're not on the podium for me too. But yeah, I thought that was a bizarre deadline. And Nick Kroll is also on my. I don't really get what you do GM grouping now.
really.
Yeah, I can't follow your logic. GM grouping now.
So, Arm, I'll throw it right back over to you. Your bronze.
I could interchange all these teams, man. I really could. I I'm gonna go with the Tigers. I wanted to go with another team here that I'm gonna go a little bit higher on because of 'cause they didn't make as much of an impact move, but I'll get to the other move in a second. Charlie Morton, Kyle Finnegan. Let me know if I missed somebody. Charlie Morton, Kyle Finnegan, Paul Sewald, Rafael Montero, and is that it?
Chris Paddock.
And Cody
how
Hewer.
could I forget?
Don't forget Cody Hewer.
Oh, okay.
Hoyer.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
Hoyer.
I thought he was extinct
This
a couple
is-
years ago.
When did Scott Harris switch bodies with Mike Elias?
I know.
This is the most Mike Elias deadline I've seen. Like, it just how many number 4 starters and like buy low relievers can we add into the fold here? And I appreciate the fact that they didn't give up much, but like you have at the top of your system, I think the most elite duo that you got in minor league baseball. No one's going to ask for the number 1 prospect in baseball, Kevin McGonigal, and number 10 prospect in baseball, Max Clark. No one's even going to ask for Josue Briseño. You could have moved to Tyron Lorenzo. You could have moved. I don't even think you needed to have it. Max Anderson has been playing out of his mind. Plenty of teams would have been interested in him. There's a lot of guys that I think you could have easily moved that you wouldn't have felt, and they didn't do it. And this is a team that was playing out of their minds at the start of the season, has hit a wall, but is still so comfortably in a playoff position because of how good they were to start the season. That I would have liked to see them just address things a little bit more and to be a little bit more aggressive. You don't have to trade from your blue chips, but do something a little bit more impactful. Especially we talked about the up the middle situation. Would have liked to see a little bit more at shortstop and center field and like just continuing to bolster the lineup. I thought it was a disappointing deadline for an organization that's in a spot where they could have done a Mariners type of thing and not felt it.
Jack, before I throw it over to you, I'll just add on to what Arm was saying because I also had the Tigers as my bronze medal. Okay. And Arm, you were saying a lot about how these moves are not really impactful. Like, I'm going to go a step further and be like, I don't really like any of the players that they got. Just point blank, period. Like, when you're adding Charlie Morton, you're probably not adding Charlie Morton for the playoffs.
As good as he's been in his career, at this point, no, you're not.
You don't want Charlie Morton to start a playoff game for you. So what's the point? Like, let a young guy come up or, find somebody else in your organization or even go cheaper than that. I don't really understand what the point was of that. And I almost like the Chris Paddock move more than adding in Charlie Morton, right? And like Kyle Finnegan has been the poster child for a really bad Nationals bullpen for a while now. Like, I know he's had years where he's got 45 saves and all that kind of stuff, but
I will say he was the only good thing going in that Nationals bullpen.
But it's not even like a great thing. And Paul Sewald, like, do you want him in high leverage? Do you want Rafael Montero in high leverage? Do you want Cody Hoyer in high leverage? No. Right? So even the moves that they made, not only were they low impact, like, I don't want those guys in high leverage. So they're really just to get you through the rest of the regular season. And I feel like the Tigers have enough in their farm system, or could have even gone even cheaper than those guys. Or you just actually sack up and go get some real impact players because the American League is so wide open. And if you add like a legit bullpen arm, you added a legit bat, and he didn't go volume, you probably have a way better deadline and you're probably better set up for the playoffs. But they decided against that. Again, they're not silver or gold because they did add a lot of volume, but I left it very disappointed.
And it's not like Finnegan's like coming with control or anything like that, where you could talk yourself into it because you got him for a couple years. Like, why couldn't you tack in a couple more prospects and go get one of the other good rentals and try to outbid some of these other teams? It just seemed like they weren't even really interested in doing that. And then, you get some smoke on being in on Suarez or whatever it may be. Like, I didn't even feel like that was what they needed to do the most. And maybe if they wanted to slide McKinstry at that point over to shortstop, that could have been what they did. But if you were willing to kick the tires there, couldn't you have addressed the bullpen with a little bit more impact? You have Jose Urquidy just threw a rehab game, I think today, and looked pretty good. You have Sawyer Gibson Long, who's probably going to be coming back from from an injury, if I'm not mistaken, sometime soon. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But like, I would almost just throw those guys out there and to get you through the rest of the regular season before I'm trading for Chris Paddock. I just don't really get it. And again, like you said, none of those guys are going to be really taking on important roles in the postseason. Uh, and I just was disappointed with it overall. And is Seawald even healthy right now?
I think.
I thought he was on the IL. So like I don't understand it.
Jack, where are you at for bronze?
I did not go the Detroit way. They
Okay.
were saved from the podium because Randy Dobnak was also attached to the Paddock deal,
Yes.
so he'll probably throw 10 starts at a 2 ERA. He'll probably be the next CC Milwaukee thing, but we'll see.
They'll just run him into the ground, but he's going to be dominant.
Yeah, and I stand by. Congratulations to CC on being a member of the Hall of Fame. I don't think
Oh, yeah.
we actually like officially talked about that at any point, but a huge congratulations to that Hall of Fame class. I will stand by CC Sabathia being the greatest deadline acquisition in the history of Major League Baseball, and I
Agreed.
don't think it was particularly close. You look at what he did in 2 months; it was absolutely absurd. My bronze goes to the Cubs. It was high volume of mid, and the one guy that I liked that they got pushed Matt Shaw to the bench. Like the Willie Castro thing, and then all of a sudden Shaw is sitting on Sunday because Willie Castro is playing third. Like, okay, whatever. They added a couple bullpen arms, but they needed an eighth inning guy, and they didn't get an eighth inning guy, so they're still going to trust Brad Keller to throw the eighth inning. And Kittredge is the scariest seventh I can imagine. Like if you're watching Kittredge throw in October, that's the guy that gets hit to Saturn.
I know, but he used to be the holds accumulator, but
I
now
understand.
not so much.
Now, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 3-4 bullpen ERA at this point for Kittredge. But Soroka being their starting pitching move kind of pissed me off. They had the world at their fingertips. And apparently, Jed was just anti moving anybody of consequence in that farm system. And that
Not
is a
even of
horrible
consequence,
signal to.
dude.
What?
Not even of consequence.
No,
Like
yeah, that's what I said. Like, no player of consequence. So,
no, even players that were like not even a big deal to move. I'm saying like they were anti-moving anybody.
yeah, I mean, dude, like, again, the fact that Michael Soroka was the big one when that impeded you from going to get a Joe Ryan or a Mackenzie Gore, like, Mackenzie Gore seemed like there was legit smoke there on deadline day. And then all of a sudden that falls by the wayside, and you got the guy that's making a shit ton of money to, like, be not good
Go
this
get
year.
Merrill Kelly.
Go get Merrill Kelly. Go get Gallen. I'm stunned Gallen is still in Arizona. There were so many options for them to pursue, and they went with one of the crappiest ones, I thought. And no disrespect thrown to Michael Soroka, but like, come on, that's your big splash. That's your, hey, Kyle Tucker, we're going for it. We're going to win a World Series and prove that we can bring it back. If I'm Tucker's camp, I'm looking at this saying, like, they want Owen Casey to just backfill my job and I leave for somewhere else.
Yeah, I get that. The Cubs they didn't make the podium for me just because like when you look at each move in a vacuum, like they needed a starting pitcher and you look at the underlying with Michael Soroka, a much better defense than what Washington has behind him. I actually
Yeah.
do think that he pitches well for them and they didn't have to give up a ton for him. And then the
No,
Willie
that's great. Because
Castro.
why go get Mackenzie Gore when you can trust the underlying data on Michael Soroka? I'm totally with you.
You know what? I don't even have a response for that one. You kind of just put me in a trash can on there. Um and then the Willie Castro move. Like, didn't give up much for him. He is a good player. Like, I think it does help to put more good players on the Cubs. And Jack, we were talking about it on the Friday episode. They've tried with Birdie, they've tried with Vidal Brujan, they tried to, make their own Willie Castro
Yeah.
from paper mache.
It's like
And
at
they
some
were
point
just
we
like,
should just go
screw
get
it,
the
let's
guy.
just go get Willie Castro. So again, I like those two moves. Do I wish the Cubs did more? Yes, and that's why we'll talk about the Cubs a little bit further when we get to some of these awards. So I already said the Tigers were my bronze. Arm, back to you. Your silver medal of sucking.
I think I got to go Cubs just
Okay.
because of the way they set this thing up too. Just the way that and I do like the Willie Castro move. I just don't think Matt Shaw was finally coming along here. That made the move a little bit less necessary to me with the way that Shaw has been playing, since the All-Star break. And I know Willie Castro can play every position on the diamond, and that's a nice get. And they didn't give up a ton, and that's great. I think that was actually still a good move, but that was their best move, in my opinion. And I just don't think that can be your best move as a rental Willie Castro. The other thing is, just from what I understand, and it's just some of the things I've heard about how the deadline unfolded, like the Cubs weren't even close to actually being aggressive buyers. It wasn't like all the asking prices were too tall, which is what they did in damage control, by the way. That's what they did shortly after is they start, feeding stories out and saying, "Oh yeah, the asking prices were just ridiculous." Yes, they were for Joe Ryan and Edward Cabrera and whoever. You could have got a Merrill Kelly, and I get he's a rental. You don't even need a trade from the top of your farm system. You could have probably made a run at some of the top dogs though with what you've got. But they're afraid they're going to lose Kyle Tucker, which they shouldn't be given the trade that they made. They should be prepared to give him whatever amount of money that he wants. That you're the Chicago Cubs. You don't need to buy more real estate. So that was the one side of it. And then on top of that is like they weren't even really like there were trades that they could have made giving up a Jonathan Long or Jefferson Rojas or two good prospects, but they are inconsequential to you at this point with all of the other guys that you have above them. And they were saying no to some of those guys. So, like, that's where you lose me. Like, I'm sorry, I'm moving a Jonathan Long any day of the week for some of these rental arms that were out there. It just, that was where I felt like this is a team that's too dedicated to the model and the process. And that's where I think Jed Hoyer has some of the paralysis that we talk about with some of these other GMs that have their teams that are on the edge, on the cusp of being competitive and can't quite push themselves across the finish line. And the biggest thing, if they didn't make the Kyle Tucker trade before the season, I don't think that I knocked this deadline nearly as much. But you essentially got a rental in Kyle Tucker and gave up. And this is the part that I can't follow the logic. Because if they want to say we're not trading big pieces for rentals, got it. Okay. Stick to it then. Why trade 6 years of Cam Smith? What is it? 4 years of Isaac Paredes for a rental and then say we're not trading for rentals. We're not willing to move some of our second tier prospects for rentals. The logic isn't even consistent here. So I could say, okay, yeah, you're sticking to the model. I get it. But did the model say trade a decade of good players essentially when you combine Smith and Paredes for 1 year of Kyle Tucker? I don't think it says that. And sure, then you could say, oh, well, it increased their chances of retaining Kyle Tucker. Well, they don't seem confident enough to move Owen Casey, who's not going to get a shot this year, because they would have moved him if they felt like they had a good chance of keeping Kyle Tucker. So I just can't follow the Cubs' logic here. And maybe there's something I'm missing, but that was a big reason why I was disappointed in it. They didn't even get serious about moving their second tier guys. And when you look at the postseason rotation right now, what's it look like? What's it look like? Are you going? You're going. Who gets the ball game one?
Mike Soroka's peripherals.
Just the peripherals.
Just the peripherals. So just the
X
stats. Because again, why go get Gallen and Merrill Kelly when Michael Soroka's underlying data looks fucking awesome? Apparently, according to Peter.
I just don't get it. So you go Shota, Matt Boyd, Soroka.
First of all, Matt Boyd is fucking awesome.
I get it. I get it. He's great.
That's a good three, I think. Am I the only one who thinks that? Is that not?
Yeah, Matt you are the only one that thinks that.
They could be squaring off against the Marlins, I think, in the first round, and I think I like the Marlins situation better.
You guys make a lot of really good points. The only point I'm going to add as well is I wish there was a little bit of Preller and Jed Hoyer. Right, he just got his extension anyway.
Of course, 1% of Preller. 1% Preller in Jed Hoyer.
Why couldn't you overpay? Like, take a second and realize, like, you are in a window right now. PCA is having an MVP season. You only have Kyle Tucker for so long, right? You have all these guys. You're playing so well. Why couldn't you give the Twins so much for Joe Ryan that they couldn't say no? They were clearly willing to trade guys with years of control, and they were asking for the world of Joe Ryan. You have a farm system where you can literally give them the world. And I think all of us, Cubs fans included, and in the media, if they gave the Twins such a huge package for Joe Ryan, all three of us were like, whoa. When it would happen, I guarantee then on this episode, we'd be stomaching and be like, screw it. go for it. Give them Casey, give them Alcantara, give them everyone for Joe Ryan, because not only do you have him for this year, you have him for multiple years of control, and that puts them in a great spot, not only for this playoffs, but then also tells Kyle Tucker, like, we're willing to overpay just to win with you right now. And we also traded for a pitcher with years of control, so we're still going to be really good next year. You should sign here for a really long time. So what that could have done is given Kyle Tucker more pause to say, you know what? This team is really buying for me, and it makes you better. And what do you have to do? You have to part with blocked prospects to do it? They should have given the Twins everything. Made the Twins be like, go to ownership and be like, we have to do it. Like, we have to do this trade. And they could have done that.
And then they could have, instead, even if they didn't want to do that, Merrill Kelly got the D-backs Cole Drake, Mitch Bratt, and David Hageman. Those are 3 fine prospect arms. Cole Drake is pretty nasty. He's 25. Mitch Bratt is fine. He's a soft-tossing lefty who's going to be maybe a 5-starter. Jefferson Rojas would be the best player of that package by a mile, and they don't feel that. That's the part where, and I know that the D-backs were pursuing pitching, but that's where you give up a little bit more offense. Merrill Kelly would be such a better 3 in the postseason than Mike Soroka. That's where I get really disappointed. Maybe Jameson Tyone comes back and you give it. Still, give me Merrill Kelly. So that part, and then you hand it off to Kittredge. I know Brad Keller and Palencia have been great. We'll see in the playoffs, but Jed Hoyer was disappointing. And then not being able to follow the logic and then watching them do damage control and afterwards, the Cubs have just been pissing me off lately.
Jack, where you at? Silver.
Yeah, one more quick thing. It is really cool to see Soroka is ripping a career low 341 ex Wobegon. So that's big. That should turn around. My silver is the Boston Red Sox.
Thank you.
Come on. Thoughts. I mean, here's the deal. Steven Matz, you're paying the back half of $11 million, so you probably are paying $5 million for that. And you gave up Blaze Jordan, who is actually hitting the living crap out of the ball right now. So that already feels like a crappy move when you have Chapman in that bullpen. You're just adding another lefty in Matz, who is lower leverage than your highest leverage lefty. So you're getting a 7th inning guy for somebody that is hitting the living crap out of the baseball right now in the minor leagues. The only other deal they made was my biggest head scratcher. The headlining prospect in the Devers trade, James Tibbs III, goes from Boston to the Dodgers for a guy that was effectively pushed out of their starting rotation by Blake Snell coming back. Dustin May is a couple innings shy of doubling his previous career high in the big leagues. He's at 104 innings already. Do you trust Dustin May to throw more than 104 innings in a Major League Baseball season? He has a 4.85 ERA. He did not have a job in this Dodger rotation, and you move the headlining prospect that you got back for Rafi Devers.
Can I tell you the funniest part about it too? He pitched on the 27th at Fenway, went 5 innings of 4-run ball, and the Red Sox said, we need that.
It's amazing to me.
Here's what gets me about the Dustin May deal. Because if you're the Red Sox, you pride yourself on pitching development, right? You bring in Craig Breslow, you have Andrew Bailey, and if you said, we see something in Dustin May that we're going to get into the lab in the offseason and unlock it.
Yeah, giving yourself plenty of time.
Too bad. There is no offseason because he's a rental. So what you're asking from Dustin May to do is to come in, and maybe they'll make small tweaks, but I feel like all of us are aligned here. He's not a small tweak away from unlocking what the Dodgers originally thought when he was in that rotation. He hasn't looked good at all this year. So, and then he's not going to throw in a playoff game for you. And then just the optics of that deal. Jack, you already mentioned it. That was like the only big time prospect you got in the Rafael Devers trade.
Yeah, now you are like, I'm already seeing the DFA Hicks shit going on right now. So you're really like resting your laurels on Kyle Harrison figuring it out.
And I wasn't clearly they don't feel confident enough about him being able to figure it out to put him in the rotation right now. They'd rather have Dustin May with a near 5 ERA than to have Kyle Harrison just get called up. Instead, they'd rather trade the prospect they got in that deal for a guy that I don't think would be that much better than Kyle Harrison if you brought him up right now.
And then here's the thing about what I'm also saying the fallout, like Arm, you were mentioning Jed Hoyer's press conferences, how bad they were. Were there anyone worse than Craig Breslow? Uncomfortably aggressive? What does that even mean? What do you mean you were uncomfortable? You know who was uncomfortably aggressive? AJ Preller. And he added 12 guys to his team, right? He added 7 players. That's like 25% of a 25-man roster. You added 2. And now I don't even mind the Steven Matz deal. I don't know what Blaze Jordan is going to become, but I like Steven Matz because
He's Rule 5 eligible.
He answers a Steven Matz answers a problem for them. They needed a guy who can, give them multiple innings in the bullpen while also spot start. So that's fine. He's a decent arm, right? But again, he's a rental. Like, you don't even have him for control either. So again, the prospect return, Red Sox fans will probably say, well, we didn't even want Blaze Jordan. Well, okay, but all you got was a rental Steven Matz. What's he really going to do for you? Now, the good thing about the Red Sox is since the deadline, they've been hot, right? They overtook the Yankees, so they're playing good baseball right now, which is great. But the deadline in a vacuum was a disaster. Not only the moves that they made, but then the press conferences after, hearing that teams hate dealing with Craig Breslow. That's horrible to hear if you're a fan. Like, our GM, nobody likes him. Nobody wants to deal with him. That's a terrible thing to hear.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting in this deal as well is that it's, he's not a highly regarded, he's not maybe even a top 30 guy, but it wasn't just Tibbs. They threw in Zach Earhart on top of that. And no. Earhart, has been pretty darn good in Double-A, playing corner outfield and giving you a little bit of speed, a little bit of pop. He's got an 801 OPS, a guy that good swing decisions, like high probability big leaguer, and could be a fourth outfield type. Maybe there's a little bit more than that, like low ground ball rate, 24 doubles on the season. He's 22 years old. So they threw in like not a nothing prospect on top of Tibbs for this rental Dustin May, where you can't, again, change too much in a short period of time. They're my gold. Just to knock out 2 birds in 1 stone. Like, they are my gold of losers because it wasn't just the lack of moves. The moves that they did make don't even make sense. And then they gave up some prospect capital. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was the headliner in your Devers deal, which you tried to, and I actually agreed with the Devers deal, but part of the sell was, hey, we just got this guy that we liked out of the draft that was a first-round pick. And, oh, yeah, we liked him so much that we attached another prospect to him and traded him for a rental who has a 4-something. I can't follow that logic either. So they're my gold of losers from the deadline.
Honestly, the more that we've talked about the Red Sox and the Cubs, I don't know if I went the right direction with my gold because we haven't even talked about them yet. You guys didn't mention them in their honorable mention, and they're my gold. But Jack, I'm looking at those eyes. Do we have the same gold?
We haven't talked about my gold yet.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to know where you're going. So I'm going to say it, and I'm just going to read your eyes. The Pittsburgh Pirates put together the worst sell job I have ever seen in my life.
So bad. So bad. They are my gold, I think, by far. Like,
they're my gold by far.
I had the Padres
the one
by far.
The one that sent me over the edge, the one that sent me to a different planet was Bailey Falter and his several years of control and 115 innings at a 3.7 ERA for Evan Sisk, a 28-year-old left-handed sidewinder who's been not very good over the course of his minor league career, and Callan Moss, who is hitting 270 with 7 homers, and he's a first baseman in high A. That was Falter?
Yeah.
I understand that he's out of options, but this guy has proven to be a good major league starting pitcher. You know, the price of a good major league starting pitcher is higher than that, right? Like quadruple that, like quintuple that, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Tigers, congratulations. You're off the podium. Pirates have to be my bronze at least. I fucked that up.
Yeah.
I was literally just thinking of teams that like were actually transacting in a way that I like was memorable for me. They flubbed every return.
The
only one that was not the worst was Bednar, but then you think about what the value of the asset is, and then you're like, that return sucks. So,
so it was bad.
Yeah, this was one where like you always think, similar to what we're talking about with the Giants and the Mets deal, where it's like the public list versus private, and how much more quickly updating it is, and like what prospects the Mets would rather have given up versus keeping an AJ Ewing, which people would have been like, oh, They wouldn't have thought twice about AJ Ewing getting moved, but they were upset about Blake Tidwell because, like, again, the pipeline can only refresh so many times. But that's not the case with the Pirates. Several of the guys Jack just laid out. Like, they traded a controllable starter. Like, we look at what Dustin May just got. How is Bailey Falter getting you that? Why is Andrew Heaney on your roster?
Why is IKF on your roster? Why is Tommy Pham on your roster?
Per Mark Feinsand, John Morosi promised us that Tommy Pham would be traded, and he wasn't. Why? But it is crazy. Like, why was Tommy Pham not traded? Maybe there's something behind the scenes that you don't know, whatever. I'd imagine Tommy Pham wants to play anywhere else than there right now, and he's been playing really well of late. Not trading Heaney, not trading Pham, and that's another. We're talking about GM on like complete. I wouldn't even say fraud watch because I don't think anybody's ever accusing the Pirates front office of doing anything right or being savvy. But it's crazy what's going on there. So I would put them as a bronze, and I think that's generous. It's just I can't supersede the other two. But I didn't think they did well on a single return. Was there a single trade that you thought they did okay on?
Zero.
No, what was the Rogers deal? Because Ke'Bryan Hayes was a glorified salary dump that gets deferred.
Ke'Bryan Hayes was okay. The fact that you got a prospect from in division and you dump that money that you surely won't invest back into the roster is okay.
I can't believe they didn't trade IKF. Like, do you remember on our trade deadline predictions and we were doing wants and needs and all that kind of stuff? We sent IKF to like 20 different teams.
Yeah, and he didn't go anywhere.
And also, I thought that the Pirates had two good assets that they really could have gotten a haul for, and they didn't end up trading any of them. Why is Dennis Santana on the team?
Yeah.
He's got a year and a half of control. He's been a great reliever for you guys this year. Are you telling me you couldn't have even gotten a decent package for him? And now Dennis Santana is just going to be on the Pirates, and you'll probably trade him at the deadline next year for less, or you might not be able to trade him because he's a reliever, and his name is also Dennis Santana, so we have no idea if he's going to be able to replicate this. And Mitch Keller as well. Like, I understand not trading Mitch Keller. I don't think that they had to, but no starting pitchers with control were traded at this deadline. If you said, I'm not even going to ask for what a lot of these teams are, which is an overpay. I just want the value for Mitch Keller. They would have gotten a great return, and they didn't. Like, they are gold by far. Their deadline was horrible.
Well, and then they acquired Rogers to flip him, and then they flipped him for like the baseball version of Dylan Raiola and Ivan Brethar, who just emulates Aaron Judge's swing. And he might be a great guy. I don't mean to bag on him or anything like that, but I mean, he is another guy that you're not getting any defensive value, really. And he's in high A with a 705 OPS as a power over hit guy with 4 home runs. So that's who you flip the other piece for. I don't think they did. Another first baseman with getting Callan Moss and Evan Sisk was insane. I agree for Bailey Falter. And then I just can't believe they couldn't get more for David Bednar, Joey Bart. They look at what Fermin got. Like, why couldn't you move Joey Bart? If they moved Joey Bart for, and I know they don't need pitching, but in theory, for the value of what Fermin got, I would have said that was worth the exercise. So I don't really know, especially given that you just acquired Rafael Flores. Why would you acquire Rafael Flores and then keep Joey Bart?
They got another catcher in the deal too. Two catchers in that Bednar package.
And Mitch Keller, why is he on your team?
Yep.
You don't spend money. You could clear up some money, and instead, he's still on your team, and you still have all of these other holes. One also.
And Bubba Chandler isn't even up.
Yeah, but the fact that you would rather pay Mitch Keller and then keep Bubba Chandler in triple, I don't really understand it. But according to Noah Hiles of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Ben Cherington valued Keller's leadership and proven performance.
Nice.
Quote, if we're going to be better in 2026, we need more of that, not less. Does he know that Andrew Heaney's not on the roster in 2026? Does he know Tommy Pham's not on the roster in 2026?
Do you think he does?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Do you think
I did like the Jeter Martinez get for Ferguson.
I was going to say my favorite trade of the month of July for them was Adam Frazier for Cam Devaney. I like adding Devaney.
That was a nice get
to their AAA system.
That was good value.
That was the best move of the deadline for them. It happened a week and a half earlier.
Real quick before I forget it, you're talking about AJ Preller. This headline from John Heyman. the Padres made a real run at Mackenzie Gore trade.
Oh, that's awesome.
Talk about not caring about optics.
Yeah.
You would then have given up James Wood and CJ Abrams for a player that's no longer on your roster, and then and of course Gore, and then traded in DeVries would have had to be in that deal to then get Mackenzie Gore back. That would have been all time funny.
I know, like, I know it's a good situation, but for Gore, with how much Preller ragdolled him through his minor league ascension,
he might have had like PTSD going back there.
Dude, that could have been akin to Siberia for him if he was going back to San Diego.
Oh, that would have been the best. Solace, everyone else gone. They have no farm system left. They're just not fielding a AAA team next year. Good. We got Mackenzie Gore. You made a point earlier, Aram, that I just wanted to quickly tie back to the Mason Miller trade about how GMs, grade their own prospects. I wonder what AJ Preller's thoughts were about DeVries. He's an 18-year-old in high A with a 115 WRC plus. Obviously, he loved him. But I wonder if he was as high on DeVries was as the rest of us are. I don't know.
He had to be.
Had to be, but you never know. I wonder how he valued DeVries.
We ask him now. If I say I always hated him.
When you say that, what do you think Preller could value him as?
Again, I don't know. Prospects
like
Fangraphs
other than a top 10
ranking.
Prospect in the game.
Fangraphs had him at 21. Maybe that was straight from Preller.
Yeah, maybe Preller's reading the Fangraphs list and be like, "Wait a minute, this guy sucks. Get him out of here."
He's 21, not consensus top 10 everywhere else.
Just saying, Jack. Is DeVries a bust? Next on First Take. All right,
he already made a SportsCenter top 10 play. Might I add? He already made a play. Like the Lansing Lugnuts ended up in the top 10 because he sprinted back and made like a diving catch in the outfield.
Are you guys ready for awards?
Yes.
These are going to be fun. So we went over the winners and losers. These are just fun. I want to start with 2 from our Discord. Again, another reminder, if you want to join the Just Baseball Discord, the best baseball group chat in the world, we're having such a blast in there. Everything. Baseball all the time. During the deadline, that Discord, thousands of messages a minute. It was such a blast, but still, we're getting ready for the postseason. All the fallout. It's going to be a blast. Make sure to join through the link in the episode description. Just $10 a month, less than a price of a sandwich. And if you just want to try it out, see what it's like, $5 a week. All right. So again, that link is in the episode description. So this comes to us from Lions in our Discord, big Mariners fan. He's calling this the 54% award. And he's thinking about Jerry DiPoto, his famous quote where we just want to build a sustainable model. We want to win at least 54% of our games. Who does that sound like? Jed Hoyer and the Chicago Cubs. Congratulations. You won the 54% award. Aram, that's kind of basically the reason you were so upset with them.
Yeah, well, I saw that quote too. That's why I think I said, like, babe, wake up, a new 54% just dropped, because that was essentially what his presser was. And again, I understand it. I understand you also just should keep that to yourself, especially with Cubs fans. But yeah, he was like kind of moving in his chair too as he was talking. I don't know. The post deadline pressers, as we talked about from Breslow and Hoyer, that pushed him up the podium for me.
Agreed. Jack, this next award is from you, and it also comes to us from our Discord from DYM. The "Can we please stop pretending he's getting traded" award goes to Luis Robert. And I think he's cooking, because who in the world wants Luis Robert? Why would you give the White Sox anything of value? It's clear the White Sox are just trying to get a taker. And why would you want to be in that market? Right? So unless Luis Robert has a great second half, I think he's just on the White Sox until his contract is up, and then we'll see if anybody wants to sign him.
We are 2 years removed. Let me pull up his 2023 here.
38 jacks, 20 steals. I know, because I've built that into plenty of narratives before, and it keeps biting me in the ass.
We're 2 years removed from a 5-win season. 38 jacks and 20 steals, a 128 WRC plus.
A lot of things happened 2 years ago. We're 0 days removed from ass.
All right, let's move on to more awards. So these are ones that I invented. And again, they're hilarious because I invented them.
Yeah.
So this one I want to start with because, again, this is prospect focused, and I could have gotten this one wrong. So I really wanted to open up to you guys who you think truly won this award. This is called the Joe Ryan for Nelson Cruz Trade Award.
Okay.
And it's given to the trade that was a 40-man crunch that might end up going poorly. I said the winner of that is Adrian Hauser in exchange for Curtis Mead and 2 prospects. Because Curtis Mead has put up great numbers in the minor leagues, but has not been able to fully break through for the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, I understand why the Rays were willing to part with him, right? He's a 40-man crunch. They had to make a decision with him. And Adrian Hauser, I don't know if they think they'll find lightning in a bottle with him and that'll continue for more than right now. I didn't really understand that move, but it is what it is. And I feel like Curtis Mead could bite them. But I'm curious if you guys agree with me giving that trade the award, or if you have another one in mind where you're like, ugh, that prospect's going to be good.
At risk of being sued for defamation, Luis Roberts last 20 games, 309, 392, 500 slash line. So 0 days from being pretty good. 4 homers in that span. Only 18% K rate.
21 days removed from being
21 days removed from being not good. That's a good one. I think people might gravitate towards the Mets, Giants one. I just don't. I think Blade Tidwell magically figures it out. Sure, maybe. I just don't see a scenario where where Drew Gilbert gets so good that you regret it. I just can't. I can't see it with Hauser. It didn't seem like it was a need for them. They have 48,000 arms. So it just kind of felt like a futile move, but I feel like they may have been dangling Curtis Mead around and just saying like, who could we get for him because of the 40-man crunch, and that was the best they could do. But that probably is the best answer, unless I can think of another one. Honestly, the other one I would think of is Steven Matz, because at least you're going to get value from Hauser. Like, Matz might be useless, and I understand that there was not a 40-man spot necessarily for Blaze Jordan, but at the same time, the Red Sox are looking for a first baseman. You could have probably just rolled out Blaze, gave him a shot, see what happens. You could have moved Vaughn Grissom, who's just in Siberia essentially right now, and given Blaze Jordan a shot. Blaze Jordan's batted ball data this year is crazy, and the guy's overcome injuries, overcome mental health challenges that he's been open about. That is, I think, is a really amazing part of his journey, but also just purely the baseball player right now. The data is legit, and it's not just first base. He can plug in at third. They moved him just because of the 40-man implications, and I understand he's excess for them, but it was an 86% in-zone contact rate and a 90th percentile exit velocity of 107 miles an hour. Again, even if he's just a one-WAR player for a couple months of Steven Matz, that might not look good.
Jack, do you have any other better answers for that than those two?
He's not a prospect, but like, I really am rooting for James Outman in Minnesota. Like, we already saw a really good major league season from him.
We did.
So that it's in the tank. Obviously, it hasn't worked whatsoever over the last 2 years, but I don't know. Like, just the idea of James Outman is still enticing enough for me to give him a shout in this exercise.
It's a good answer. The next award is called the No Caller ID Award. It's given to the phone call that had to be so out of the blue and weird, but at the end of the day, a trade was made. I was laughing about this all weekend when I was thinking about doing these awards. Just Artie Moreno calling Brian Cashman and saying, what'll it take for Oswald Peraza? Yeah. And I bet Cashman doesn't even have his number saved, because it's like, well, the Angels, not only do I not want any of their pieces if they were to sell, but they're probably not going to sell. We're both buyers, so there's probably no way we're going to have a conversation. So he gets no caller ID, and it ends up being Artie Moreno or Perry Minasian saying, can we get Oswald Peraza from you? And that's a guy who doesn't fit on the Yankees right now and has been playing terribly. And they were just like, sure, you can have him if you want. And it's a real fall from grace for Oswald Peraza, and Foolish Baseball put it best. It's like, this team is just obsessed with post-hype prospects. I wanted to be a fly on the wall so badly for that conversation. I just want to see Brian Cashman be like, sure, we'll give you Oswald Peraza, and then snicker to like the people in the room, be like, what is this idiot doing? Yes.
My favorite part.
And you'll give us prospects for him? Sure.
My favorite part is they immediately DFA'd Kevin Newman, who I like. It just is kind of the Spider-Man meme. they're just gonna get Kevin Newman but younger. So that was a fun trade.
Yes, it was. Next award up, the Tide Pod Challenge Award. And it goes to the most absurd trade that we wonder why it even happened to begin with. Remember the Tide Pod Challenge where people would
Yeah.
pop Tide Pods in their mouth? Like, why the hell did that start?
And it would explode and it would send kids to the hospital because they were doing the Tide Pod challenge.
The worst trend ever, and you're questioning why it ever happened?
Yeah.
Brian Hayes to the Reds for Trevor Rogers and Sammy Stafura. Why? How did that conversation even start? And why was it in division? Why was Tyler Rogers attached, or Taylor Rogers, excuse me, attached to that? Why did the Reds feel like they needed to add a defensive-minded third baseman when they could have used so much more? Tide Pod Challenge Award goes to that trade.
Yeah, I don't even know how that in division for that kind of trade was bizarre as well. I agree. And then the Reds just being like, all right, well, we'll just punt Noelvi Marte to the outfield. None of it made sense.
Any other ideas for that one that could have sufficed? Just weird trades that you were like, why? Why'd you? I mean, I think the Brewers trading for Jordan Montgomery and Shelby Miller for nothing when they're both free agents next year. That
I
doesn't
guess
make
it was
sense to me at
Shelby
all.
Miller, and then they basically, I guess, like didn't want to give up a prospect, so they said, "Well, we'll take on like a little bit of the Jordan Montgomery money." I
I
guess
guess.
that was a
Why did
weird
they need a
one, though.
bullpen arm? They must love
That was a
Shelby Miller.
weird one. Yeah. Do you think Jordan Montgomery even just like does he doesn't leave his house, right? Nothing changes.
I don't think he's gonna leave his house. I think he's just like,
Nothing
oh, cool.
changes. I don't know if there's another one that really fits that bill for me.
Jack.
I'm good.
So the next award is the Frank the Tank Crash Out Award, given to the trade that immediately backfired and had fans smashing their television.
There you go.
I think you know which one I'm talking about.
So, can I ask, is it 1 or is it 4?
It's 4. Yankees getting 3 relievers and Jose Caballero. Then they combine for 9 earned runs in less than 3 innings, and Jose Caballero makes a huge error. You trade for 4 guys, and they immediately puke all over themselves and had me crashing out like Frank the Tank.
Yeah. No, there's no better immediate, and also just putting them all in order. Like it just couldn't have been better. Putting them in order immediately, not even easing them in. Hey, Bednar, you suck here historically. Go get them. I loved that.
And it wasn't one reliever having a bad day. It was every single one of them. And then the big error by Caballero, another deadline acquisition.
They all found out they were getting traded the day before. Caballero was okay because he was already in New York playing the Rays. He just needed to switch clubhouses. But think about that day leading up to that outing on Friday night. So they find out Thursday. They probably spend the entire night and morning the next day getting to Miami to become a member of the New York Yankees, wrangling up the wife and kids. And then all of a sudden you're there. Hey, time to take on a whack-ass game.
Not good. All right, last and final award is called the I thought the deadline was on August 31st award, given to the GM of a contending team that did almost nothing. I know it's in the Brewers' MO to do this, but at the end of the day, them doing basically nothing, it was a disappointment. Now, did they need to add a bunch? No, they've been playing amazing baseball. Could they have used a bat or two? Yes. Right? I thought they were in a position where their farm system is so fantastic that they could have traded guys who are maybe 40-man crunch guys for bats to help them. Again, they're a good team. They're a great team. But they could have ascended with a couple of small moves at the deadline. And they've been so good with those, right? Getting Andrew Vaughn, right? Targeting Caleb Durbin in the Devin Williams trade. They're so good at that. They could have gotten guys that we don't even really care about. Maybe Brandon Lockridge is that guy for them. But I was just, again, they're not a loser of the deadline, kind of similarly to the Dodgers, where they didn't really need to do much, and they didn't. But I was underwhelmed, and I think Brewers fans are as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best farms. It's arguably the best farm system in baseball. They are probably gonna have a 40-man crunch. I would have liked to have seen them do a little bit more. I'm with you. I mean, they literally they. The weird part is that all they parted with to potential to add the one bullpen arm that they didn't really need was actually salary. They took
Yeah.
on salary. Who would have thought?
Any parting words before we say goodbye? Anything you got to get off your chest about any of these
No,
deadline
I got it
teams?
all.
Just
I got
one
it all
more.
off my chest.
One more.
I feel 20 pounds lighter now. I don't know if I got anything else. I feel really good about everything that I got out today.
Any additional rants, Jack?
No, it's 8:51 p.m. This was a hell of a weekend to be a fighting fish. I'm going to go to bed.
Hell yeah. So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Hopefully we started your Monday off right. And if we did, the best way to support, rate, review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts 5 stars, as well as hit that subscribe button on YouTube, like the video, and comment anything you disagree or agree with, or just leave a fun little comment. Why not? For Jack McMullen, Arm Layton, make sure to go get yourself some Just Baseball merch. And I'm Peter Apple. And with that, thank you, everybody.